You know somebody that's been in a car accident, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we know that in any given year, I think 30,000 people die in car accidents, a couple of 100,000 are injured. Okay? Now, we could make the same argument. Let's lock down our cars. You can't drive your car for the next 6 weeks, the next 2 weeks, the next month, because we know there'll be less people dying in car accidents. We know that if we don't drive our cars. But you just can't shut down society because there's so many other negative consequences. When you lock down from COVID, people don't go see their doctor for a checkup. They don't go to preventative medicine. They don't go to all these things that can then also cause death. So you could make the same argument, we shouldn't drive our cars, we'll save people from car accidents. Okay, well, if you lock everybody down, people won't get COVID quite as much, but they'll still get it, and they'll have all these other bad consequences. So the worst thing is there's no scientific basis to any of this COVID stuff. It's just very ridiculous politicians mimicking the original Chinese communist solution was house arrest, put everybody under house arrest, and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's kind of the thing. I think everybody's too scared of this thing, and it's keep piling up with the fear tactics and the media pushing these fear tactics in. But some people don't understand that it takes a lot of jargon to make you feel scared and aware of what's going on. It seems like, China will take over the United States in about another year or so.
Well, look, I'll agree on the fear thing. If you look at CNN, they've got like a death count. Every day they add to the death count.
Yeah, I was saying about that too.
It gets worse. But in truth, only like 5% of those people died only of COVID. They had something else going on, which is typical of any flu or any disease. So the fear factor was really built up at the beginning, especially by Andrew Cuomo in New York. He would go on TV and he had all these people from nursing homes going to the hospital. He'd say, the rest of the country is going to be like this next week, And there was this fear factor, and I think Trump got sucked into it, even above his better knowledge or his better instincts. He got sucked into going along with this. Well, we'll just do it for 2 weeks. And then it just never ends. Here we are, it's almost middle of November, and nothing has changed. Only that the economy is messed up. We're losing our rights. You can't go to church. You can't go to synagogue. You can't travel without a mask. I mean, the amount of invasion on civil liberties was unthinkable. But it's continuing. And if Biden gets in there, I think they're going to try to make all this stuff permanent.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, we got time. I got one more question for you.
Sure.
Filmmaking. How do you start filmmaking? What is your inspiration on doing filmmaking? Your topics that you're passionate about. How do you start doing your films based on a topic? And how do you keep it going on and keep the audience interested?
Okay. Well, first of all, to become a filmmaker, I think it requires you have to have a real passion about a certain story or a certain subject. And the second thing is you have to know how to tell a story, because technically anybody can go to film school. Like I've been to, I used to go to the Jay Leno show, for example, when it was here in L.A., in the audience, and the guys, they were called pages. There's like people that show you where to sit. They show you, hey, come sit over here, called a page. So the pages, I talk to the pages, I say, hey, what do you normally do? They say, I graduated from film school, UCLA, a couple years ago, and that's the only job they can get is to show people where to sit down, because anybody can learn how to technically make a film. You can also hire somebody to help you edit a film, but it really takes a passion for a certain subject and know how to tell a story. Be a good storyteller, explain something in an interesting way, and if you have that, it's good to go ahead and try to make some short films. And today you can put them on YouTube, of course. When I started making films, YouTube wasn't that big, but you can certainly put some short films out there and get some feedback and kind of build it up from there. Ultimately, you want to get a distributor. Like I have a film distributor who will take my film and they'll put it on, DVD and on demand, and they sell it, to all these countries all over the world. And you get a royalty check every month. and then you make I made like 20 films, so every month I get a check for each film, digital, DVD and so on. But it does take a lot of hard work, and it really takes a skill in storytelling to really know how to tell a story. So if you want to learn how to make films, I would say go read the best storytellers, books about people how to tell a story, how to structure a story to make it interesting, and that's a good starting place.
Yes, and all the films you made, was there one film one idea that you got from your head and disappeared, and you look back and you say, "Man, I wish I can do that."
I wish I could do it.
Yeah, like one idea you had, but it went away. But now all of a sudden, you got it back again, and say, "Man, I wish I could do that on film."
Yeah. Well, I think I've made films about subjects that people have a lot of interest in. I've made films about Bob Dylan and Paul McCartney, Elvis Presley. I made films about Middle East history and the Islamic militant Islamism. Of course, I made films about Barack Obama and the progressive politics and Trayvon Martin. So one key is choosing subjects that a lot of people have interest in. I can't tell you how many people say, "Hey, I got a great idea. I'll make a film about my family history." Well, you better have a lot of cousins because it's hard to sell 1 million, views. So you want to choose a subject that a lot of people are interested in, like Bob Dylan or Middle East politics or whatever, U.S. politics. Made a film about Donald Trump, of course. But in terms of having an idea that I didn't pursue, I've had good film ideas that depended on timing. Like I wanted to make a film about Ted Cruz. I was going to call it Ted Cruz Autopsy, about Ted Cruz's presidential run that I worked with him. But the timing of it, literally I had to get that film ready within like a couple of months because events just changed where it was no longer relevant. So that's another problem, is if you make a film about politics or history, it has to be relevant and not suddenly, the window kind of closes. Like I talked about earlier in this conversation, is if Biden and Harris get in there, a lot of stories and things are going to change. Look, all of Hollywood has held off releasing, because of the COVID thing, they had to hold off releasing a lot of films that were ready to go, and they might not release them for another year or two. So a lot of times current events and politics can affect what you do with your film making and film releases as well.
Yes, indeed. And before you go, can you tell us where can we find you at?
Yeah, if you go to my most recent film, thetrayvonhoax.com, and you can actually, there's a link right there. You can go watch it for free on YouTube. I put it on YouTube for free a couple months ago. Highway61ENT.com, Highway61ENT for entertainment.com. That's where all my films are located there. And on Twitter, I'm Joel S. Gilbert. Joel S. Gilbert. You can got a lot of links there. And check out all my films, and hopefully you'll learn a lot.
Indeed, if you look in his own film library, you do will learn a lot. Thank you so much, Joe. It was on my mind a couple of days ago when the Breonna Taylor case came out and everything else came out. Thank you for coming. Anything else to say or do, please feel free to stop in. Don't be a stranger.
Okay, always great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Also got caller. Can I have your name and where you're calling from, please? Welcome to Baltimore Talking Live.
What do you say, Baltimore? How you doing?
Hey, Bianchi, how you doing? You got any questions for our guest before he leaves?
Yeah, Joel.
Yeah.
If I had an opportunity to make a film, it would be about slavery.
Okay.
It would be about those Africans that was expelled from the continent, not all, but many, and showing the reason why. Because as it is now, the story that's being told and disseminated is totally off base. It disregards the fact that human beings are human beings, no matter where geographically they're located on this planet, and they always have been. And the story now is that whites went into Africa and stole black people and brought them over here, which is totally not true. So.
Okay, well, I mean, my comment is anytime there's so much stuff in history that people don't know about, that people just have a certain image of that are very important, whether it's something about, Abraham Lincoln or George Washington or, the subjects of slavery around the world. In the Islamic world, they used to, they would conquer Christian villages, and they would take the children and turn them into this slave corps called the Janissary Corps. So there's things that people have an impression of today, and the subject of slavery has become so big politically. That's a fantastic subject to teach people something they really didn't know that changes the perception of what they thought about something that they just take as a given. So if you have evidence and you can tell a story about how African slaves were either expelled from Africa or who captured them and who sold them to the whites, to the English, and I think it's a fantastic idea. So yeah, I think you're totally onto something. Anything that changes that you have the evidence that you can show that changes the historical narrative is very worthwhile, and you'll find a lot of people will watch it and they'll be, oh wow, oh my God, I didn't know this, and they'll want to share it with somebody else. So that's a great area to look into.
And another thing, there's blacks-owned slaves. We're not talking about a handful or a couple dozen. They owned in the thousands of slaves in the South, Louisiana, the Carolinas. And whenever the issue of slavery is brought up and who's responsible and who should pay, the popular voices never put out the issue that blacks own slaves too.
Yeah,
and
I have heard that. Yeah, let me make one quick comment. It's true that I've read that there were black slaveholders, and we have that new issue coming up of reparations, of course, politically. So, how would you ever figure that out? Who is supposed to get what from who if you got to pay reparations? But the other thing I want to mention is when you come up with a story that is different from what people think, there's also resistance. You'll have open-minded people who will really want to know, but a lot of people will I don't want to know that, and they'll try to stay away from it. So that kind of controversy actually is what gets you more publicity.
Mm-hmm. And another point, Africans, kings brought slaves over to do work and take part of the economic opportunities that existed, like rice farming in the Carolinas. And finally, these American soldiers who fought in American wars, which just so happened to include the U.S. Civil War, their story needs to be told too, because they were soldiers that fought in the wars. And it's never told about the other wars that they fought in, either before or after the Civil War. And the contributions that they have made to the United States being what it is today, if it wasn't for some of the key figures that's always out there, like the Lee and the Stonewall Jacksons and so on, hey, we wouldn't be here today. So
that's right. Well, it's a great area. I think it's one of the things I've done is any historical research that is generally unknown, you can really get deep into it and share it with people. You have a really potential to have a little niche there, especially in that world of history of slavery, which people don't know much about other than just a very basic thing. So I would encourage you to do that.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling too, Pianki. Well, that's our time, folks. Like I said again, thanks for bringing my light to everything else. And please, look again, I said, if you got anything else, please come back and don't be a stranger.
Okay, very good. Thanks
for coming again.
All right, we'll talk again
too.
when Trump gets inaugurated, okay?
Oh, God, hope not.
All right. All right, take care. Thank you.
Anything can happen. This world, anything can freaking happen.
All right.
All right.
All right, good night. Thank
See
you.
you. Good night. That's Joe Gilbert, ladies and gentlemen. Nice talk to him.